All right, our next speaker here is an American war hero. He comes from a Green Beret background, and he's very, very humble about his background. I'd like to see if we get Mr. Powell to come out of that shell. And he's running for state assembly here in California. And let's get him to talk about his very impressive background here, and then why he's running for assembly.
I'll leave Hercules out. My name is Rick Powell, and I'm running for the 78th Assembly District. Anybody know Marty Block? Anybody want Marty Block? All right. I just decided to run a few months ago, and as always, when I talk to people, they say, "Why do you want to do this?" Especially my friends and neighbors. And I always use a quote by a famous philosopher by the name of Pericles, who said, "Just because you don't have an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't have an interest in you." Thus, here I am. A little bit about my background. As Rick said, I'm a former Green Beret, former Special Forces, but before that, I was a Marine. Any Marines out there? Any Vietnam veterans out there? All right. Anyway, I served in Vietnam in 1966. After getting out of the Marine Corps, went on to college, and then I was hired as a federal special agent. I was a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Did a number of Secret Service details. Transferred from ATF to U.S. Customs, where I came here to San Diego. I was a member of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, cross-designated DEA. Went on from there to do strategic investigations. That's the smuggling of weapons of mass destruction, missile technologies, things that other countries want from us, our technology. And then from there to Joint Terrorism Task Force. And I'll talk a little bit more on that when we start getting in a little bit of the immigration issue, because they're not telling you what that immigration bill, the one they're writing up now, really incorporates if they pass that. Back to my military service, just in closing there, once I became Army Special Forces, I stayed in the reserves until 2003. My brigade, I was a colonel at that time, was mobilized, and I commanded a brigade in the invasion in Iraq in 2003 as well as Afghanistan, then retired in 2004. So that wraps up both of my careers, retiring as a federal agent in 99 and then as a military officer in 2004. What got me into politics was I actually lived in ignorant bliss for a while. I started building homes. I enjoyed what I was doing, but I started watching the news, and that was my demise because I saw where our country was going. I saw where our state is going. We have fantastic representatives that are going to Congress with Nick and Mason and Duncan being there. Can you imagine what that team's going to be like? But we have issues here at our state level, and it affects all of us here. And I'm going to address a few of those. You know, Will Rogers once said that the lazy and lame do not come to California. Guess what, folks? That has changed. We have 13% of the United States population within our borders of California, but we have over 32% of the welfare of the entire United States here. Who's paying for that? You and I. We're paying for that. Our debt. A lot of people look at the debt and they say this is a financial disaster, but it's more than that. Coming from my background, I see this as a national security issue. Many of you know that the federal government is borrowing money from China. They are so broke now, they're borrowing money from China to pay the interest on the money we borrow from China. Well, California last year took tens of billions of dollars from the federal government, in effect, borrowing that money from China. China is taking that money we're paying them, and they are building a submarine and an aircraft fleet to challenge the United States for the Pacific. I mean, how asinine is that? I mean, we are paying potentially our greatest adversary to build their fleet. It's absurd. On our schools, we rate 47th of 50, unless you're counting Obama's 57 states, but most of us think of 50. But we're rated 47th, and yet we pay the highest amount, over $10,000 per student in this state to get an education. It's outrageous, and that's going to have to be addressed in the future. The illegal immigration. this is going to be very serious. You know what's happened recently in Arizona, and you've heard the president get on television. Now he says we're going to have to move this up and address it. I'm telling you, and John Boehner, the minority speaker, was talking about this on television, and he made reference that they acknowledge that of the 12 million, if they give amnesty across the board, for one thing, there should be no amnesty. If you give amnesty to some, what about all those in Africa or England or Asia that are trying to come into this country? Where does it place them after years and years of going through the proper process? If they do provide this amnesty, not only will it give approximately 12 million people citizenship, but they're going to give them legal status within 24 hours of passing that law. You cannot even do a background investigation at 24 hours. These are major, major issues.